I'm Michelle Lee, I'm 46 years old. I live in Kellyville in Sydney, and I'm going to be Australia's first female to row solo across any ocean.
One woman, one rowboat and the Atlantic Ocean.
You throw a cork in a washing machine and have a look at what happens to that cork.
This is the story of Michelle Lee as she attempts to become the first Australian woman to conquer the world's toughest ocean race, the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge.
It's the second biggest body of water on the planet. Covering 20% of the Earth's surface, it measures approximately 41 million square miles.
It's like the old proverbial, needle in a haystack. You're just a blot, a tiny dot on this vast ocean.
I'm Lisa Goddard, and this is Michelle's story. And with that horn, Michelle Lee finished her record-breaking solo row across the Atlantic. 68 days, 12 hours and 49 minutes after leaving La Gomera, she took her first steps on solid ground.
Please make some noise for Michelle Lee of Australia!
Her best mate Claudine shocked at how much weight she'd lost. For the record, it was 14 kilos. She stepped off the boat and into a media frenzy.
Sydney rower Michelle Lee.
Michelle Lee has just become the first Australian woman to row across any ocean on Earth.
46-year-old Michelle Lee has conquered one of the world's toughest nautical challenges.
Sydney-sider Michelle Lee.
46-year-old Michelle Lee arrived on the Caribbean island of Antigua today.
On the line is the Sydney woman Michelle Lee.
First Aussie female to row solo across any ocean.
In the process, she has become the first Australian woman to cross any ocean solo in a rowboat.
Not bad for someone who, until 2 years ago, had never rowed. Ross is shaking his head.
Hey, Alan, how you going?
Oh, stop it. How you going? You're back on dry land. Are you uncomfortable?
Look, I am actually. Yeah, seriously. It's more comfortable to be on my boat right now.
Day 46 was particularly tough. Here's Michelle speaking to her designated person ashore, Tony Roberts, at the time.
Oh, I feel a bit worse for wear today.
Why is that, babe?
I've got dodgy guts for the last couple of days. I just feel weak and tired and just diarrhea all the time. Diarrhea. It's not nice.
Is that right?
I'm so low on toilet paper. Like I am on rations of rations.
That's no good. That's no good to hear. Your diarrhea, do you have any anti-diarrhea tablets?
No, I've got everything for constipation and everything, but nothing for diarrhea.
Right, okay. I can't think of anything else right now, but I'll certainly do some checks online and see perhaps what you might be able to take, yeah. And I'll come back to you on that note, yeah. How's the rest of your body holding up, Bubs?
Yeah, just hanging in there.
This has been one roller coaster of a ride, both for her and for myself. Obviously more for her. I mean, it's just been total ups and downs, from the highs of playing with the sea life, and then you get through to the lows of riding out rough weather, being absolutely buffered around, and being actually shit scared out there. And that's what it's like for us on occasions, and when I call her, I don't know what the conversation or how it's going to flow, but all I know is that I've got to try and keep her motivated enough to keep rowing even through the harshest times. Yesterday was a real bummer for her. We didn't let on to anybody. I haven't told anybody, and I get the call and I knew something would be wrong, and it could have been the worst call ever, because at the time the rudder is held on by 2 gudgeon pins and a third one right down the very bottom. Now, the first gudgeon she heard at night, she heard this noise and she looked over, and the top gudgeon was a bit of movement in it. Unfortunately, the second one, which is middle of the way down the rudder casing, and it's very close to the waterline, that one was moving quite a lot, to the point where the rudder was moving from side to side of the boat. So we started thinking the worst, and we were trying to come up with ideas of cutting a hole in the floor and actually then getting access. But during that 8 hours, God bless her, Michelle sorted it out herself.
After day 46, it became about survival on the open ocean. Michelle described her worst day to Fran Kelly on ABC Radio National.
In your diary, I understand you write, on day 46, my worst day ever. I was in the biggest seas. I had contradicting swells. It was the worst combination. Tell me about that moment. Can you remember it starkly? Tell me what you were feeling.
Oh, yeah. I had winds of sort of 18 to 22, maybe gusts of 25, being hit beam on by one swell and then being hit, with a swell coming from behind. Then there were wind waves smacking against my hull. The wind is really unnerving, I find. And it was so constant. It was absolutely relentless. My autopilot was going nuts. I was trying to row on an awkward angle in order to maintain something that was, worthy to get me west. And I had this autopilot carrying on, and I had... I was concerned about the status of my rudder at that point as well. So I'd found, that the second bracket on my rudder was loose. So, I'm worried now what's going to happen. Worst case scenario, I always go there in my mind. If that broke, does the top and the bottom fixture, is it able to cope with the stress and the strain? I'm on day 46. I don't know how many more days I'm going to be out there for. So all of this is going through my mind. And I would say from that day on, I was on high alert. I had high anxiety. I was nursing a toothache as well as an earache. And I felt so vulnerable, and, I realised then that this is a survival challenge. It's not a rowing race. This is a survival challenge.
I'm surprised it took you 48 days to understand that. I feel so sorry for you as you describe that.
So what's it like being back on dry land?
It's mixed emotions, to be honest. Initially, it was pure relief. But now I've been back nearly 3 weeks on dry land, and I have to say I'm struggling a little bit. I'm already over first world problems. I'm already over internet that's slow, which is quite ironic considering I sat on an average pace of 1.9 knots to get across the Atlantic, and now I'm whinging about slow internet.
Has the land stopped moving for you yet?
It has, thank goodness. Yeah, it's still and quiet, which is good.
So what's it like? Did it take a while for you to find your land legs?
Yeah, good 4 or 5 days. And to be honest, I felt better to be sitting on my boat than I did on land. And, not suffering one day of seasickness. For me, getting on land, I actually think I was suffering from a motion sickness kind of feeling for that first 4 or 5 days.
When you came off the boat, you had almost a 5-hour block of media interviews. Are you surprised by the media attention?
Yeah, totally blown away at people's genuine interest in what I was doing. And to come home and, I'm still going through all of the Facebook messages, the social media went nuts. And, the comments like, oh, we can finally sleep now that you're home. Like, that's common. So other people are saying, oh, my God, I got addicted to dot watching. And it's almost like they need a new hobby now because, they were really enjoying, and, some of them were watching me at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're watching me 3 or 4 times a day. So it's quite humbling, actually, to know that so many people were interested.
And when you come home and you're talking to the likes of Alan Jones, what's that like?
It doesn't feel real. I mean, honestly, he's, little old me. I'm, just seriously an average chick that, all of a sudden you come home and, you're speaking to Alan Jones, to his audience, who, he holds the biggest audience in talkback radio in Australia. So, again, mind-blowing and unreal.
So talk us through, I know day 46 was tough for you. Was there a point where, you feared for your life?
It was, for me, seriously, when I realised that I'm doing something bigger than run around my neighbourhood naked. And it's the day that I felt so fragile and vulnerable at the reality of the enormity of what I was doing. And why did it take 46 days? I think probably because it was also, I was nursing a few things on my boat that they weren't broken, but they were certainly compromised. So I was stressing about those. I was stressing about my own mental health. I was nursing a toothache and earache and just feeling so fragile and vulnerable. So from day 46 onwards, it really was a mental battle for me. And had there been another boat next to me saying, do you want to hop off, honey? Do you want to call it quits? I really would have struggled, I think, to resist that temptation. I was in such a state, and I was on high alert, high anxiety, nerves, everything. Stressed from that day onwards were at all-time high. And I think just not knowing how much longer you've got, I was on day 46. I could have been out there for another, 10, 20, 30, 40 days. You just don't know. So it's very much the unknown that also was playing a big part in my mental instability.
So was the last half harder than the first half?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely it was for me. Although we had slightly better conditions in terms of, trade winds, it was, for me, mentally tougher simply because I was nursing those items on my boat, and we'd had some bigger seas as well, so it made me realise that, we'd been very lucky in that whole race not to have Mother Nature kick up a massive storm, but I was also anxious and so, just hoping that it would hold out for the rest of the race and that I wouldn't have to deploy my parachute anchor and sit on in a storm and stuff and risk being capsized. So, definitely the second half was harder for me.
So let's talk about what's next. But first of all, I really want to know about your mantra. When you think you've got nothing left, you've actually got a lot left, haven't you? So explain that to me and how important that was in the last part of that race.
Yeah, massive motivating, motivating factor. And I drew on a lot of what I learned from doing that world record, the 1,000,000 metre, where, that's where I initially started learning about pushing boundaries and pushing limits, where I had to dig deep and rely on the fact that so many people had helped me get there. So that was a big force where I was, constantly thinking of the people that had given up so much to get me there, whether it was their time, expertise, their gift in kind, their cash donation, whatever. And you don't want to let them down. So whilst it put a little bit of extra pressure on you, it also made you not give up, because I could have at any time, I could have hauled out, I could have hit the EPIRB, I could have, let off my emergency beacon to say, come and get me, I'm done. But it's thanks to all the people that got me there that you can't let them down. And you've got to turn negative into positive, like I was struggling, but was able to really just draw on all the stuff I'd learned in the lead up to, because it was hard to get to the start line. So I reminded myself of all the steps that I'd had to take, everything I'd had to give up to get there. Over a course of 2 years, consistently and persistently, it was a slog, and challenges were thrown in my way all the time. So they built the resilience that I required to draw on when I was out there, and I'm really grateful, because if someone had have handed that to me on a silver platter and said, there you go, Michelle, there's 200,000, get yourself across the ocean, buy your boat, buy it all out and all done and dusted for you, and just sit your bum on that seat and row, I tell you, I would not have had that same fuel and that same mongrel to dig deep and just get there.
How valuable, Michelle, do you think that lesson is for corporate Australia and for executives and for up-and-comers to hear?
Oh, I think I can hopefully, and that's what I'd love to do, is to really inspire people to find that in themselves and to learn that there is so much reward in effort. So anything that requires a lot of effort, I guarantee you there is massive reward to be reaped. And I want to get that message out there, particularly to the youth. You know, when the ball, you know, when the going gets tough, don't drop the ball. Find ways around, under, over to overcome adversity and challenges, and you will reap the reward. And not only you, but the people around you that help you. People love to help. I've learned that only through doing this, because I've never been one to ask for help, and I've prided myself on independence and not needing anybody for anything. And I've learned massive lessons in life that inclusion, it actually gives, you know, I'm giving to others, giving them the opportunity to help me. And that was hard for me to understand, but I'm seeing that now, and I'm hearing it. And people that have been involved, you know, they're telling me, oh my God, we just loved being involved with that, you know. So people get by giving, and yeah, my message to anybody is start thinking you can and you will. Adopt this can-do attitude. When it gets hard, dig deep, you know, be stubborn, draw on all those traits, and you will get there in the end.
Now, the question everyone wants the answer to, what's next? Is there another adventure in you?
Oh dear, it's so funny. I got approached by a girl who wants to buy my boat. She wants to row one leg of the Pacific. So the Pacific's the biggest ocean, and she is from Perth. She wants to row from California to Hawaii, and my ears pricked up. I said to her, do you want a rowing buddy? And she said, well, I wanted to do it as a pair, but she said, I've had a lot of people pull out on me, so she kind of resigned herself to doing it solo. And she said, do you know someone that might want to do it? And I said, me. I wouldn't be surprised if there is another ocean in me to row. My boat certainly is a fantastic vessel, and I love my boat. There's things I would change for sure, which I learned when I was out there. But, you know, that's what you do. You tweak and refine things. And you can only do that by spending time in them, in the conditions they're going to be in. So there was not opportunity for me to do that a lot of the time before I left. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another ocean in me.
A While Away is produced by Claire Christensen, Erin Rohn, Ria Abraham and me, Lisa Goddard. Recorded on location in Michelle's home country, Australia, and in the studios of Adoni Media. You can find us online at adonimedia.com.au, or you can subscribe wherever you normally find your favourite podcasts. Thanks for listening.